Mike, check. Justin Hunt. It's all happening. Thank you to everybody rocking with the channel. Thank you to everyone subscribe to the channel. Share the video, share the link. It's priceless. Big thank you to everyone who's donated. If you'd like to donate, hit the Cash App right up there, or you can hit the link in the description. Best way to support this channel. We also have a Discord. Link in the description as well. We'd love for you to join the community. Big day. This is a big day. Big day in media, big day in politics. Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA, the far-right commentator. I think maybe that's a fair way to describe him. He was shot and killed today in Utah. Now, here's the Associated Press. Here's the story. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk fatally shot in an act of political assassination at Utah College. Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist and close ally of President Donald Trump, was shot and killed Wednesday at a Utah College event in an act that the state's governor called a political assassination. A person of interest was in custody Wednesday evening, said Utah Governor Spencer Cox, though no charges were immediately announced. This is a dark day for our state, Cox said, calling the killing a political assassination. We are actively looking for anyone and everyone who has any information related to the shooting, he said. Utah authorities said the shooter wore dark clothing and fired from a roof on a campus some distance away. The death was announced on social media by Trump, who praised the 31-year-old Kirk, the co-founder and CEO of the youth organization Turning Point USA, labeling him a great and even legendary figure. Kirk was speaking at a debate hosted by his nonprofit political organization immediately before the shooting. Kirk was taking questions from an audience member about mass shootings and gun violence. Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years? An audience member asked Kirk. Kirk responded, too many. The questioner followed up, do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years? Charlie Kirk said, counting or not counting gang violence. Then he was shot. Charlie Kirk's last words were counting or not counting gang violence. Utah Valley State University said the campus was immediately evacuated and remained closed. Classes were canceled until further notice. Those still on campus were asked to stay in place until police officers could safely escort them off campus. Armed officers walked around the neighborhood bordering the campus, knocking on doors and asking for information on the shooter. Officers have been seen looking at a photo on their phones and showing it to people to see if they recognize a person of interest. So they haven't, again, named who's responsible for the shooting. The event, billed as the first stop on Kirk's The American Comeback Tour, had generated a polarizing campus reaction. An online petition calling for the university administrators to bar Kirk from appearing received nearly 1,000 signatures. The university issued a statement last week citing First Amendment rights and affirming its commitment to free speech, intellectual inquiry, and constructive dialogue. Last week, Kirk posted on X images of news clips showing his visit to Utah colleges was sparking controversy. He wrote, "What's going on in Utah?" The shooting drew swift bipartisan condemnation, with Democratic officials joining the Trump administration, who ordered flags lowered to half staff and issued a presidential proclamation, and Republican allies of Kirk in decrying the violence. Okay, so this is a big deal. As you can see, there's a sweeping response coming from the red team and the blue team here. Pretty much everywhere Charlie Kirk goes, whatever campus he's visiting, I don't say whatever campuses, but pretty much all the campuses Turning Point USA goes to, runs into a bit of resistance. This was a very big conversation in the mid-teens, around 2016, when a lot of these organizations were on the rise. You had a lot of pushback from universities when it came to certain fascistic, Confederate, fascist, sometimes labeled conservative ideologies coming to campus to help build their base. But Charlie Kirk was very good at it. Turning Point USA began to have an incredible influence on young people. He had 5 million followers on Twitter before he passed, for example. This past election, I think young people, Generation Z, this might be the first generation to have as many young people vote for the red team. So, over the past 10 years plus of his work, he was able to see real impact on the ground when it came to spreading these types of messages. Here's some more information. It says Turning Point was founded in suburban Chicago in 2012 by Kirk, then 18, and William Montgomery, a Tea Party activist. to proselytize on college campuses for low taxes and limited government. It was not an immediate success. I don't know if it's a long-term success, right? I mean, they've been great at getting their elected officials in office, but taxes are higher for everybody who's not a billionaire or a corporation, and government is more wide-reaching. We have much more of a nanny state than we ever did before. We're living under a police state. We have the federal government sending the National Guard into states, into American cities. We will have Palantir, that's here. And we have ICE agents running around everywhere as well. So the red team is very good at espousing this point of view. I don't think that they've ever been very good at implementing it. But Kirk's zeal for confronting liberals in academia eventually won over an influential set of conservative financiers. Despite early misgivings, Turning Point enthusiastically backed Trump after he clinched the GOP nomination in 2016. Kirk served as a personal aide to Donald Trump Jr., the president's eldest son, during the general election campaign. Now, that's the thing about Charlie Kirk as well. He's not an independent creator by any means. He is backed by, as you can see here, he eventually won over an influential set of conservative financiers. And so he has very large money behind everything that he promotes, everything he advocates for. And so as such, a number of things that he's advocating for, me personally, I'm 180 degrees away from just about all of them. Just about all of them. I'm not a fan nor follower of Charlie Kirk. I do not have respect for the messages that he's put out here. I think that he is someone who's done an incredible job of dehumanizing large populations of people. I think he's had influential grooming aspect on young people. And I think that when you start seeing these, when you start seeing legislation and you start seeing voting populations, young people particularly, voting populations voting for a turning back of the clock that promotes trad wives and a return to pre-civil rights era legislation and status quo in America. There's nothing about that I agree with. But it does speak to his effectiveness because we weren't there in 2012, and we're certainly there in 2025. We just had the Supreme Court say that racial profiling is legal in Los Angeles. Okay, now in 2012, that was a totally different Supreme Court. But with the help of young people and the work that Charlie Kirk has been doing, the red team was able to get, arguably hijack, the Supreme Court. All right, so I disagree with just about everything about this person, but he was effective. Soon, Kirk was a regular presence on cable TV where he leaned into the culture wars and heaped praise on the then president. Trump and his son were equally effusive and often spoke at Turning Point conferences. That's the AP story here. Here is what happened. I'm not going to show the full scene here, but this is what it looked like. So you can see Charlie Kirk sitting here. You can see Charlie Kirk sitting here underneath his banner, says "Prove me wrong" in the banner. There's thousands of students here. Thousands of students here. He generally had very large crowds. The person who's asking him questions is sitting right here. And you can take a listen to his last words.
All right, great. So do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay. It's 5. Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting.
And this is where it happens.
Or not counting gang violence.
And here you can see everybody running away. So that's what it looked like. Reactions, here's another angle. This is what people believe to be the person that was perched on the rooftop. And so again, as of the time of this recording, we do not have a suspect in custody. We don't know anything about political motives. We don't know their background, etc. But this video has been floating around here. This looks like what many think perceived to be someone who is responsible for the shooting. All right, next. Here's Trump. Trump was actually the one who announced that Charlie Kirk had died. Trump said the great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me. And now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. Here is former President Barack Obama. He says, "We don't know yet what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this is the kind of despicable violence that has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife Erica and their 2 young children." That's what Obama had to say. Here's Kamala, former Vice President Kamala Harris. She said, "I am deeply disturbed by the shooting in Utah. Doug and I send our prayers to Charlie Kirk and his family. Let me be clear, political violence has no place in America. I condemn this act, and we all must work together to ensure this does not lead to more violence." Sobering times. Now, Bernie Sanders, much more brief here. He says, "Political violence has no place in this country. We must condemn this horrifying attack. My thoughts are with Charlie Kirk and his family." Zohran Mamdani, out of New York City, the New York candidate for mayor. He says, "I'm horrified by the shooting of Charlie Kirk at a college event in Utah. Political violence has no place in our country." So you can see the themes here. Denouncing political violence. Again, Charlie Kirk is a powerful political figure, a political voice. So, and we also just heard the governor of Utah describe this as a political assassination. So the leaders that have been coming out, a lot of them have been decrying and denouncing political violence overall. Next, here is Governor Pritzker of Illinois. He spoke for he took comments about the event today, but listen to what he said here.
My sympathy to Charlie Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk, who obviously has, become a target for somebody. I don't know whether it's political violence because I don't know who did it. I know they seem to have somebody in custody. But I will say that political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have tripped a new era of political violence.
Yeah, and that's really what's happening. He pegged this. He named Trump directly. He said a lot of Trump's rhetoric is contributing to this. He also mentioned the Minnesota representative in the state of Minnesota who was murdered by a Trump supporter in June. And the headline here says, "Trump says he won't waste time calling Minnesota governor after slayings." So this isn't a new thing. We also remember January 6th. We also had a congresswoman, I believe she was a senator or a House member from Arizona. She was murdered. And so there's been a number of situations, a number of events right here. So you can get a feeling and understanding as to why our elected officials or political leaders have been talking about, we have to stop this political violence. We're in a different landscape now. This one is from Maine. I saw this. I bookmarked it. It said, "I am disturbed by the events in Utah where Charlie Kirk was shot. Our political discourse is devolving into uncharted waters where political assassination is becoming commonplace. This is not who we are." I beg to differ. I think we're really violent. I think Kendrick nailed that line so well. It's my favorite line from Euphoria, where he says, "They run to America, they imitate heritage. They can't imitate this violence. We violent. We are so violent." Whenever people say violence isn't the answer, I just kind of feel like that's one of those things that people say because it sounds good. But when I look around, that's not what I see. I see violence with ICE. I see the abducting people. That's a lot of violence. My neighbor Zoe, I talk about this all the time. She got shot point blank range by an ICE official with a rubber bullet. That's pretty violent. I turn on the news all the time. I see them bombing babies in Palestine. That's super violent, incredibly violent. I look at all of the fact that we have the highest incarceration rates in the world, despite dropping crime rates, violent crime particularly. That's extremely violent. I look at what happened to people in my community during the Civil Rights Act. Everybody was shot. Everybody was murdered. I agree. I do not support violence by any means. But when I see things like this is not who we are. This is who we are. We don't make any changes after mass shootings, school shootings. We send thoughts and prayers and get back to what we do. We don't actually solve problems like homelessness or food insecurity. We just give more money to the police. We answer everything with violence, as far as I see. And this isn't a new, this political violence isn't a new thing. I mean, this has been happening for the past 20 years at least, that I can remember. Maybe one side now feels it a little bit differently. But this isn't a new thing either. And so it's a great tweet. I think the sentiment is something we all wish were true, but we're incredibly violent. We advertise it. I'm looking up, we've got ships on the outside of Venezuela right now. Incredibly violent. We just defunded the Department of Education. Okay, that's incredibly violent. It's a different form of violence, but that's violence. All right, we take tax dollars from poor people and we give them to rich people. That's violent. You find a sector of violence, we specialize in it. This is one of those tweets that sounds good, but just doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Pastor Ben says, I am praying hard for Charlie Kirk, but what we're not going to pretend is like political violence is not bipartisan. Not when Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were literally assassinated less than 3 months ago by a MAGA man. God pulled Charlie through for his family. Another example, again, we are in a cycle of political violence. This is who we are. Hassan says, America is an insanely violent nation. Charlie Kirk shooting is the 46th school shooting this year thus far. It did take place at a university. This is number 46. We just had a whole summer vacation. Whole summer vacation. Kids weren't even in school for the past 3 months. So we've got about we have 3 months to go. Okay. This could be 100 before the year's over. I'm not even, and check this one out. This is even crazier. The day Charlie was shot, there was also a school shooting in Colorado. Multiple people shot at Evergreen High School in Jefferson County, Colorado. There was another school shooting today. So there's 2 school shootings, bare minimum today. This is who we are. This is who we are. This has been going around too. This is what Charlie Kirk said back in 2003. This is his quote on gun deaths. Because Charlie's in support of all these things. Charlie said, I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our God-given rights. That is prudent. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Now, whether you agree with that or not, Charlie did. The circumstances that led to his death, he supported. In a sense, he died for the cause. The last words to come out of his mouth were gang violence. Well, pitting communities against each other, stoking racial resentment, pushing literal fallacies like replacement theory, that was part of his mission. This is who he was. Whenever there was a school shooting, Charlie was one of the people that came out very strongly against making any changes, making things better, making things safer. As he sought to execute the things that he saw fit and that he thought were important. Charlie Kirk says gun deaths, unfortunately, worth it to keep Second Amendment. Andrea Junker says, let's make one thing clear from the start. Charlie Kirk was the victim of a school shooting in a country where he, along with other right-wing extremists, influencers, have been inciting violence for years. Kirk is neither a martyr nor a hero. He is a cause. He is a cause. You know, I've been having a number of conversations with people close to me who describe this as someone who is murdered for his opinion. Charlie Kirk wasn't an independent content creator. He is the mouthpiece for a very organized, very well-funded group of billionaires that are part of the right-wing media complex who for the past half century have had a list of Confederate policies they've wanted to enact in this country, including the overturning of Roe v. Wade, affirmative action, including Citizens United, and including Project 2025. He is funded and paid for by these people. So he has been pushing an agenda that's been in the works for half a century. We're seeing it come to fruition now. This isn't someone who was murdered for his ideas. He's evangelizing youth. We saw that in the AP story. He's proselytizing to young people. There's more here than just someone who has an opinion. Part of his content is inciting political violence. It is part of what he does. I think he would even describe it that way. Go look at his Twitter page right now. Go look at what he's been posting. Go look at the last stuff he was posting. This is part of who he is. This isn't as simple as someone disagreeing with you, so you were murdered. This is someone who has been inciting violence of all kinds on communities of all types. You know what I say over here all the time? It's all happening, but thoughts are physical. Our thoughts are physical. The energy you put out is the energy you get back. Let's make one thing clear. From the start, Charlie Kirk was the victim of a shooting in a country where he, along with other right-wing extremists, influencers, have been inciting violence for years. Kirk is neither a martyr nor a hero. He is a cause. Revolutionary Blackout says, this happened every day in Gaza, and Charlie Kirk cheered it on. Charlie Kirk cheered it on. This is what he stood for. These are his missions. Rebecca Jones, Charlie Kirk weaponizes culture wars to indoctrinate young people into far-right politics, promoting harmful and even deadly conspiracy theories, endangering marginalized communities and undermining democracy, all whilst profiting off the chaos. Save your sympathies for the innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire of MAGA's violent political messaging machine now. Whether or not you agree with any of these things that these people are saying, this sentiment is very loud when it comes to what happened to Charlie Kirk today. There are people, as we saw in the beginning, particularly if you look at President Trump's statement, for example, they revere him as someone who is a legendary person and great person with a massive impact. If you watch right-wing media, he will be evangelized for a very long time. And in a weird way, this is like the opposite of Martin Luther King getting shot. Like the opposite. Martin Luther King was fighting against 400 years of oppression, slavery, discrimination, dehumanization. And Charlie Kirk's been fighting for his view that white people are oppressed because they haven't been getting the best jobs for the past 15 years. But his messaging was effective. We saw that with his impact with young people. You saw that with the thousands of people sitting in the crowd. This will have a lasting ripple effect into the future. This is a touchstone, a watershed moment for a population. And we're not even sure how this breaks. Is this something that will make temperatures die down? I doubt it. I think that the side most impacted by this will feel like they're the victims of this and have no part of this overall climate and landscape. That tends to be what happens with the Confederates. They called it the lost cause. The cause wasn't lost, baby. It came back and rose through the courts. But Charlie Kirk is a figurehead in that movement. This will be looked at as sort of like the other side of MLK to a population of people. It has that much weight to it. Over at Boxed In, my favorite forum, Boxed In, Charlie Kirk has died. In memory, I'll share some of his most memorable quotes. Here's one. It says, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. He later defended that as a logical statement. A logical statement he attributed to DEI. Now, when I see a black pilot, I know that mug got to be super qualified. Here's another. He invokes the Great Replacement Theory, and he says that the Great Replacement Theory isn't a theory, it's a reality. He's posted false statistics about police encounters and said a police officer is 18 and a half more times likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black man is to be killed by a police officer. He said black crime is a major issue in our country and stated prowling blacks go around for fun just to go target white people. He claimed Haiti is legitimately infested with demonic voodoo and warned that Haitian migrants would become your masters. On Supreme Court Ketanji Brown Jackson, he said, she's only on the Supreme Court because of affirmative action. Ketanji Brown Jackson was not chosen for her brilliance. They picked her because she's a black woman. On the nomination of Byron Donalds, a black Republican, for Speaker of the House, he said, I don't like this affirmative action stuff. We have 2 black people running. Skin color means nothing. This is what he was about. This is what he was about. Eric says maybe Charlie Kirk shouldn't have spent years being a hateful, demagogic fascist, and this wouldn't have happened. Maybe he should take some personal responsibility. The sentiment is out there quite a bit. You saw that one had 55,000 likes on it. Brandon Bardford says, this is going to lead to something bad is an odd stance. A Minnesota senator was assassinated a few months ago to the collective shrugs of society. A lot of bad stuff's been happening for a long time, for a very long time. Things have been moving in a fascistic direction the entire century, truthfully. And they've been moving at rapid speed this decade. And people have lost jobs and industries continue to crumble. And we have ICE agents and the National Guard marching into our cities. And our global standing is collapsing and we're bombing babies in Palestine. But hey, Cracker Barrel, I heard, go keep that logo. Cracker Barrel says go keep its old design of the restaurants. This is what the culture wars get you. This is what MSNBC said, and you can see the response here. This is from Eagle Wings. So let's take a look, listen to the clip first. This is how MSNBC was characterizing Charlie Kirk and what happened today.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot.
There it is. I mean, the energy you put out is the energy you get back. The energy you put out is the energy you get back. Now, Eagle Wings disagrees here. Eagle Wings says, what a POS. You were saying Charlie Kirk brought this on himself? You can't stop with these awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place? I think that's what they're saying. But Eagle Wings thinks it's despicable to frame things this way. It's despicable to expect those who promote violence to receive violence. Now, whether or not this is all posturing or whether this is a real person, this could be a bot. You can see how polarizing the situation is. And I believe that's by nature because that's who Charlie Kirk was. Tori Juan Kenobi, big shout out to Tori Juan Kenobi. 1 second applause. You're about to see an endless amount of tweets saying no matter what your political views are, violence is not the answer. Talking all that shit online, dehumanizing groups of people, supporting an agenda that literally harms people, and you think you're safe outside. Amazing. I don't know if people realize what is happening around us, yo. I don't know. I know a lot of people believe that you should be able to say whatever you want. We all love freedom of speech. We do. But I think 2 things are missing here. One, consistently, people think that, I guess because of the rise of the manosphere, or because of people like Charlie Kirk who are talking about freedom of speech in the way that this is and saying extreme things to push this idea that we have freedom of speech, that they actually think that that means everyone has to accept what you say and there won't be any repercussions. That's not the freedom of speech I grew up with. I also had the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But 2, you can't continue to push culture wars. You can't continue to push people to the ends of their balance sheet. So there's negative dollars in their bank account. Take away their Medicare. Take away their health care. You can't put police officers in their face, ICE agents in their face, have the National Guard march on them, take books out of school, take public dollars and give it to private institutions. And continue to go outside and promote certain ideologies, dehumanizing people, saying people are better off not existing, better off back in slavery, better off things much worse, and not expect to make some enemies. There's a lot of talk of political violence in this episode, and political violence has been going both ways for a long time, if not more so from one way to another way. There's one side that talks about how much they love guns so much and they can't wait to run up on their political opponents. There's one side that it talks about jailing their political opponents. This is very common rhetoric and conversation in the political environment over the past 9 years at least. At least. I think people expect people to accept them being terrible people. But the problem is, historically speaking, I think now in this day and age, people are understanding that you can't really make a deal with a fascist, though. It's like that episode of Jubilee with Mehdi Hassan, and he was talking to that fascist, and the guy was like, I am a fascist. And Mehdi said, wait, so yeah, you just want to have an election and then never have an election again? He's like, exactly. That's what we want. That's what World War II is about. That's what the Civil War is about. The Confederates are fascists. The Nazis benchmarked the Confederates. That's why I'm anti-Confederate. But they're not playing by the same rules. That's a lot of people's frustrations with the blue team. The blue team are like, are you still trying to sit down and have rational conversations? Or so trying to pass legislation in a decorum expected of a 1984 House session? That's not the era we're living in. The blue team is trying to hold yesterday together, and the red team is willing to blow it all up for the tomorrow that they want. And they're willing to use any type of rhetoric necessary to evangelize people and to bring people to their cause. And at some point, some people are going to be like, nah, this is too much. You've othered too many groups. And things like this happen. We don't know the cause of this situation yet, obviously, because as of time of recording, there hasn't been someone named, a named suspect, nor do we know anything about them. But what Tori's saying here, I feel it. Talking all that ish online, dehumanizing groups of people, supporting an agenda that literally harms people, and you think you're safe outside. Amazing. I keep hearing people say all the time, yeah, man, violence is never the answer. Where? In what America? What point in American history has violence not been the answer? So why wouldn't you expect violence at some point in time? And if you do expect violence, why are you not moving that way? I expect violence, which is why I move the way I move. I don't move with violence. I don't move targeting people. That's not how I choose to represent myself. And that's not how I choose to advocate for the issues that are important to me. But there's a cognitive dissonance between people who think, yeah, I'll be able to say whatever I want. And also no one's ever going to touch me because they know no one should get killed over words, even though we kill more people than the rest of the planet. I don't even get that logic. Meacham says, wonder what Coke Jr. thinks about politically motivated violence today. He's talking about Donald Trump Jr. This is what Donald Trump Jr., for example, posted for his Halloween costume. Got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume ready, a pair of tighty-whities and a hammer. This is, of course, after Nancy Pelosi's Hunter was attacked in what many deem to be another politically motivated attack. Yeah, they make jokes about it. This is the environment we're in. This is America we've been in for a long time. You guys know who this is? You probably don't. This is the guy who assassinated 2 politicians back in June, and it seemed like we moved on by July, as if that's just the way things are sometimes. Normalization of political violence will continue to have repercussions. This fool says, I unfortunately do not have it in me to feel bad about a man who's made a career out of fear-mongering and promoting hate and violence towards others for getting shot. I think a lot of people commiserate with that one. Power to the People says political violence has no place in our country, says the same Republican and Democrat politicians who fund endless wars, genocide, and political violence abroad. We export it. Delaney Vandergriff says we should be clear about what political violence is. 1, starving people when there's enough food for all of us to eat. 2, denying people health care so they die from preventable illnesses. 3, denying poor people shelter. And 4, increasing police budgets across the country. That's also political violence. 1 second applause. Stacey says political violence became normalized in America on January 6, 2021. Everything that happens from now on is just a result of from what happened that day. Hate to break it to you, Stacey, it's been happening way before then. Way before then. Everything that we're experiencing now is a reaction. It's a reaction to things that we've been willing to tolerate for way too long. You know, there's been a lot of people saying things like, you know, be considerate, be empathetic. And I don't think that Charlie would really want that, because Charlie wasn't an empathy kind of guy. He wasn't an empathy kind of guy. Here's what he said.
I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. But
made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. Whether you are a fan of Charlie Kirk, whether you're the opposite of a fan of Charlie Kirk, this is a watershed moment. This is a watershed moment in American history and American political discourse. This is a continuation of a long period of political violence, both overt and covert. This is part of what we've been seeing in terms of this sweeping shift of resources to the wealthy and a cavernous wealth gap, poverty all around us, and nothing but the police to imprison us. That's the environment that we've been living in for a long time. And all things considered, from a Charlie Kirk standpoint, he was a very successful person. Because all the things he espoused, except for lower taxes and smaller government's gotten bigger and taxes have gone up. But the energy and the people that he represented have been very successful since 2012 when he started Turning Point USA, when he started his organization until now. And so he's a consequential figure in American history. And to a generation, like I mentioned earlier, this will be, in my opinion, I think this is like the opposite of Martin Luther King, or the other side of the coin of Martin Luther King passing away. I don't know what the future holds from this standpoint. I don't know how this reaction to this news, which we'll go over with you all, but more than anything else, how the reaction to this incident will reverberate across the globe, but also across our political discourse. But we've been on the other side of the bell curve for a long time now. And this is one of those moments in American history where everyone needs to be careful. Things are changing rapidly. And I think this is going to be a major inflection point. Let me know what you guys think about all of this. Let me know what you guys think about Charlie Kirk. Where were you when you heard the news? What do you think about what's happening now? And how do you think that America and the world will react to today's news? My name is Justin Hunt. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow at The Company Man on everything, including The Company Man podcast, where you listen to podcasts. It's all happening.
Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. The mathematical breakdown of this mighty game of rap we in. It's boom bapping. Systematical culture views us radical, it's all happening. Shaking hands and dapping it. Life through the lens of hip hop, from trip hop to yes, dog. You don't stop, you don't stop. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening.